This is the second part of the project. I'm going to be discussing different aspects of the project, and I think that this particular set of instructions that I have for you today are more for those of you that are planning on doing a short film instead of a documentary. It can be helpful if you're doing a documentary. It can be helpful if you're doing a music video. It can be helpful if you're doing a blog, but it's going to be more helpful, a little bit more helpful for those of you that are making a short film. So let us begin the lesson of me versus COVID-19 directing in 7 steps. And you know that you basically are going to be one man or one woman orchestra. Usually, cinematography is a collaborative effort. You know, it requires different people with different skill sets working together. But in this project, you're going to be working probably alone, or if you have someone in your household that can help you, that's another possibility you can explore, but you're going to have to adapt this to your reality, right? Because we cannot congregate and collaborate like we do in other years. But this project was done successfully by my students last year. So I know for a fact that this can be done successfully. And I hope to see the same from you guys. So let's talk about directing in 7 steps. You're directing your film. There's no way you're not directing it. This puppy is entirely in your hands. So you're going to be directing a cinematic work of art. And most of the time, as a director, you're spending time figuring out the shots. You know, how am I going to make this cool shot? What cool angle am I going to use with the camera and all that? But you cannot do that before understanding the story that you're going to be telling and understanding the characters that inhabit that story. That's the wrong way to do it. The first thing that you have to address is the story. So what I'm going to do today in this lesson is to help you be successful as a director by following a 7-step formula. Step number 1 of being a successful director begins with studying human behavior. Remember that human nature is the concept that there is a set of inherent distinguishing characteristics, including ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that humans tend to have. So that means that human beings are very predictable, that there's a method to our madness. There's our behaviors are pretty much systematic. And that's why, you know, we have psychologists and psychiatrists, because they understand and they study human behavior. So you're going to have to be a little bit psychological here. So you have to understand what makes human beings tick, what makes you tick. And why do you do the things that you do? Because when you're directing, you're going to have to understand why your character is doing the things that he or she is doing, and what is the things that make them tick, or what motivates them. Once you know the answer to these questions, you're going to have a better idea of how your characters in the script are going to interact with each other. You have more than one character. The good thing about behavior in humans is that it's not only observable, but it's pretty much predictable. If you're going to write a script where people are engaging different kinds of actions, you have to understand the how and the why of people's behaviors, and sometimes why behavior changes. Okay, like in our current crisis right now, you are living differently than the way that you lived 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. Your life is different. Your behavior is different, right? So as a film director, you're kind of like a witness to that human behavior of your characters. You need to get into the habit of observing people and how they go about their daily lives, so you can find out what motivates them to do the things they do. Once you know what motivates a person to achieve their daily needs, you'll be able to better understand the story that you're telling and be more confident in directing the performances that you want. Now, step number 2 is the story. And you have to understand as a director every detail of the story that you're telling, where it takes place, who the characters are, what happens to them. So when you first read or write your script, here are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself and answer to help you identify and solve story problems. Like, for example, ask yourself what the story is about. What did the story make? Does the story make sense? That's a big question you have to ask yourself. Does it make sense? If you're not sure if it makes sense, have somebody read your script and see if it makes sense to them. If it doesn't make sense to them, then you need to rethink what you're doing or rewrite or fix what you're doing. What problems need to be solved? Remember that every story is about solving a problem. Another question would be, what events hook the audience? You have to keep the audience interested in what you're doing. So there have to be things happening that will keep people interested and continuing watching your film. What is the plot? Now, what is the action that is taking place in your movie? And what are the subplots? And you already know what the subplot, because the subplot is the theme. And you know that the theme is you versus COVID-19, you in the context of our current pandemic. And understanding a story is going to require work from your part, because you're going to have to dig deeper into the story and into the structure of that story and analyze each scene in the script that you wrote to find out what it's about. And you have to ask yourself questions like, what is the intention of this scene? What are the story points? What are the scene beats? The scene beats are those spaces between the shot and the scene. Remember that scenes are made of shots, and scenes are those spaces where people say or act in a certain way, and there's a reaction to that, or there's an effect to that. And you need to have a clear understanding of where's the climax, what is the climax, which is a specific moment in your film, and what is the resolution, or how is the problem solved, if it's solved at all. And also the important lines of dialogue. Remember that dialogue is used to explain certain things and also to move the story forward. So each time that you read the script, you're going to find something else that you didn't know about, because you know that each time that we read something, if we come out to it with fresh eyes, we might see new things and have new understandings. Maybe the script is going to evolve. Maybe you're going to see some things that you don't like and you want to fix. Feel free to do so, because at the end of the day, your script is not written in stone. Okay, it's written on paper or in your computer, and that's something you can fix. Remember that I told you about tools that you can use to writing your screenplay. The third step is performance. Almost everything that you need to know about directing an actor can be explained with these three words. Motive determines behavior. What's motive? Your inner world. What's going on in your head. Determines means controls, and behavior refers to the outer world, your actions. So everything that anybody does, they have to think about doing first. Is that clear, guys? I'm not hearing answers.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
people say something and they say, oh, I didn't mean to. Or people do something and say, oh, I did that without thinking. That is scientifically impossible. Everything we do and everything we say, we think about. It comes from inside. So when your characters behave in a certain way, what motivates them is a question you need to ask yourself. For example, how many of you know who Thanos is?
Me.
Eso es un
Me.
personaje de... No me
Okay.
acuerdo el nombre
What was his
de la película.
behavior? What was he doing?
What was the bad of the story?
But what was he doing? Be more specific. What was he doing?
He wanted power
humanity.
To power to do what?
to destroy like half of the population on the earth,
To
basically.
the universe.
Uh-huh.
Try the universe. He wanted power to kill half of the living things in the universe. Why? Well, because he thought that the universe will be a better place, a more peaceful place, if people were not fighting for resources. So he thought that the universe was like overpopulated. So he actually was being killing people and doing all these horrible things he was doing, but he thought in his mind that he was being what, a hero or a villain?
He was a hero in his mind.
In his mind, he's being a hero. In his mind, he's being like the greatest thing in the universe, the Messiah, in his mind. So motivation, what goes in here, controls what happens here. Is that clear, guys? What you do,
Yes.
the Bible says, as a man thinks, he is. Thought precedes behavior. It's that simple. Right? That is scientifically proven. And when you see a character behaving in a certain way in a movie, a question you have to ask yourself is, why? Why is that person doing that? Why does she hate men so much? What happened? Why is he robbing? Why is he stealing when he already has so many things? He's, you know, he's well off. Why is he doing that? Those are questions you have to ask yourself, and you need to provide answers. You need to provide answers, right? So that, remember that when you break down story, your script, what our needs are or motive will be decided, determined by the action that we take, our behavior. So as an actor, someone who's performing, a question you need to ask yourself is, am I believable? If you're an actor and you don't understand the motivation behind your character's actions and words, you have not done your homework. For you to give a believable performance, you have to understand what motivates you to be believable, and if your words make sense. Okay? The key for a realistic performance is to understand your character's objectives. And there can be one main objective per character in a scene. So you have to ask yourself, what do they want in this scene? How to choose objectives? Ask yourself, what does the character want in the situation? A character's objective should create obstacles for the characters. Look at what the character does, the behavior, rather than what he says. Remember that what we say is more important than what we do is more important than what we say. Look at what happens in the scene and how it ends. And look at what people want out of life. What are the things that they will sacrifice everything for? Okay, step number 4 is very important. Directors have to master the principles of montage, also known as the Kuleshov effect. This is a very important element for good directing. In 1918, there was a famous Russian filmmaker called Lev Kuleshov, and he conducted an experiment where he shot and edited film with the face of an actor, and he intercut that shot with a different shot. Can you see this? Can you see the actor? Look at the face that he's making. What can you say about his face? I'm not asking him if he's pretty or ugly. That's not what I'm asking him. I'm asking about the expression that his face is making. What can you say about the expression of his face?
Está neutral. No sé.
Ajá, como se está serio.
He's serious, and it might be a little bit blank, but it's very intense. There's a lot of intensity to he's staring. You know, when you stare at something, your eyes are fixed there. Well, basically what Kuleshov said was that the next shot that you put after we see the person's face is going to provide the context for what is happening. In other words, we're going to understand the first shot, this one, by looking at this one. He is gazing. Then we see this shot. What do you think that means? That he is what?
That he's hungry.
He's hungry. Exactly. It means he's hungry. We take the same shot of the guy looking with intensity, and we see a dead girl in a casket. What does it mean?
He's sad.
What?
He's asking like what happened. I mean,
Exactly. He is
trying to
sad. He
find
is
what happened.
grieving.
Sad.
You see, the next shot is going to help you interpret the one before, but it's the same shot. It's the same shot. When they shot that director, there was nothing else. The director just told him, look this way. And then the director edited, inserting other shots. And so that's what the experiment revealed, that what we show after will give meaning to the shot that came before. We see the guy staring, we see a plate of soup. He's hungry. We see the guy staring, we see a dead girl in a casket. He's grieving. We see the guy staring, and there's a beautiful, sexy woman on a sofa. What does that mean? Is he grieving?
He's in love with her.
In love. He's in love.
He's
Literal.
lusting. He's lusting after her. It's not that he's hungry or he's grieving. He's lusting after her. So you see how this works. This experiment in juxtaposition. As a director, you need to keep that in mind. The shot, and as an editor, the shot that comes after is going to give meaning to the shot that came before. Questions?
No.
Alfred Hitchcock
No.
said that was very important.
No.
He called it montage, and we call it the Kuleshov effect by Lev Kuleshov, the Russian filmmaker. It's the same thing, montage or the Kuleshov effect. So remember that as a film director, understanding the principles of montage that we just explained are going to help you create a more visual script. It will help you tell. Remember that every time that we see a shot, an angle, that's like a sentence in a paragraph. You're communicating something, and it has to be clearly communicated. Okay, the next step has to do with the psychology of the camera. The psychology of the camera refers to visual meanings of shot and angle. Each shot or angle means something. There are basically three angles of view in a camera. There are some that we call the objective angle, which is when the camera is placed outside of the action. Usually those are like static shots. There's a subjective view. That is when the camera acts as the viewer's eyes, your eyes. And you have the point of view shot, which is what the character is seeing. In other words, the camera is the action. Let me explain that. How many of you play video games?
Me.
Okay. You know, when you say, give me do you guys play shooters? You know what a shooter
Yes.
is, right?
A lot.
Yes.
A shooter is a video game where you go around shooting people, killing people, and blowing people up, right? Which you love to do. When you only see the hands of the character that you're playing, and you move around, and you don't see yourself, you don't see the character, you might see the hands of the weapon you're carrying. What angle would that be? Objective, subjective, or point of view?
Point of view.
Point of view, exactly. It's point of view. You know that sometimes you're playing a shooter and you can see your character running around, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Sí,
You can see your character, you're playing Zelda or something, and see
a
Zelda
third
running around.
person.
I'm sorry?
A third person shooter.
Okay, but
No.
let's say that you're playing like Sonic or something like that. But you play Sonic, the Hedgehog,
Yes.
or
Yes.
Mario,
Yes.
and you can see Mario jumping around. What point of view would that be? Remember, when you're playing and you're seeing Mario and you're seeing Sonic, the
Pues
camera is
sería
following the action. So what is it?
pues lo de point of view, ¿no?
Is it objective, subjective, or point of view?
Subjective.
It's
Subjective.
subjective. because you're following that character. You see how this works, guys? This is very simple. This is very easy. Okay, so did that help you understand what that means?
Yes.
You know, the video games, they use camera angles too, in case you didn't know that. Step number 6 is basic blocking and staging techniques. We gave you an entire lesson on blocking. Remember that before you start to shoot the movie, you have to figure out a blocking plan. You have to think about the when, the where, and where the characters are last seen. What is the last shot of the previous scene? What is the first shot of the scene you're going to be working on now? What is the last shot of the scene that you're working on now? And what's going to be the first shot of the next scene? And that's going to help the editor put together something that makes sense and that is very cohesive. So blocking is very important, guys, okay? You should answer these questions that you see here when you're blocking. Finally, the last step has to do with technical things. You know, technical means everything else: location, cinematography, editing, sound, costume, stunts, everything, the entire shebang. I know that I'm putting the majority of the filmmaking process into one category, but you have to understand all of this. Okay, if not, you're going to be setting yourself up for filmmaker mediocrity, and that's not something you want to do. Remember that Frank Capra, a very famous director, said, there are no rules in filmmaking, there are only sins. And the worst sin is dullness or boredom. Okay? So you follow these 7 steps and you're gonna do very well if you follow them. Okay? You have some here to find tips on how to continue making your movie. They will continue giving you information and inspiration if you use them. They are there for you guys to use. So please use them because they're going to be very helpful for you guys, okay? In our next lesson, we're going to be talking about the cinematography and lighting of your and camera work of your film.